we look at now the future of college football, that being this NIL, this name, image, likeness, so many thoughts, so many opinions, so many avenues, so much stuff has been going on with all of this. And I still stand by the first thought I ever had, which is it's good to pay the players. It's needed. It's necessary to compensate the players. They've been doing this for so long, bringing tons of money, tons of funds, tons of infrastructure, tons of capital, tons of revenue to these programs. It is time for these players to be, compensated for their likeness. Now, does it need regulation? Does it need oversight? Absolutely, because it's right now looking like the wild, wild west out here. But at the end of the day, this is the future of collegiate athletics. This is the future of college sports. And for Coach Saban and Alabama, it's going to be how does Saban go about this? Because the more I look back and I listen to the outstanding, passionate interview that we had with Bo Scarborough on Monday, and Bo did an outstanding job of him explaining, the education factor and explaining, coming to college to grow and develop as a young man and as a student athlete, and the goal should be getting to the NFL and making that generational wealth, that generational money. And while I wholeheartedly agree with everything that Bo mentioned on Monday's show, I look at Coach Saban and you look at these two aspects here. If you go back and you really dive into the nuts and bolts of the conversation that he was having on last week with the boosters he was speaking with at the 50-day countdown to the World Games in Birmingham, Coach Saban was essentially putting all of this, putting the ball in the court of the boosters. He was saying, okay, guys, look, how much do you really love Alabama football? You say you love the product. You say you love the program. But how much do you really love it? How much do you really want to see Alabama continue to be the needle, the beginning of conversation in college football? How much do you really want to see Alabama remain on top? Put your money where your mouth is. And he was using Texas A&M as an example. Saban was telling the Bama boosters, hey, look, guys, you see all them oil tycoons down there? You see all those power brokers, those billionaires? You see how they love A&M? They're putting all that money into A&M. You see that? You see what they're doing? If this is where college football is becoming, if this is the future of this game, and you're seeing what A&M's doing over there, you see this? You see that, right? You see this, and you really love Bama, how can that help us here? How are you going to help us? How are you going to make sure that we are staying on the up and up as the boosters? You see all of these collectives going on in Southern California at USC. You see what Lincoln Riley and them Trojans got going on over there. You see that, right? How are you going to help us get to that right there? Because if that's what college football is coming to, if it's coming to NIL and collectives, players getting this money here, and everybody else is ponying up, boosters. You say you love Bama, boosters. You say you care about Bama, boosters. You say you want us continuing to be the needle of college football, putting this in your court. I think essentially that is what Nick Saban was doing. And he was just using Texas A&M there as an example. But the other part of this conundrum is, will there still be players that come to Alabama for the culture, to win championships, for the mindset, for the education, for what's already been laid down as the foundation? Do you still see or have players, student athletes come to the program, attend the program for that particular reason? And while, John, I think there'll still be guys that will come in with that hard hat mentality, with that ready-to-work mindset, with that grind-out foundational structure that's already been put here, because there will still be guys that will look at the NFL as that generational wealth and come to Alabama as the gateway to get to the pros. But you're starting to see more and more of guys that are the first question that comes to them in their recruitment now is not your fan base. It's not, your program. It's not your strength and conditioning. It's not your education. It's not your preparing me for the NFL. It's not any of these are becoming the first question now. The first question to the NIL cultural athlete is how much is in your collectives now? How much NIL can I make? How many NIL funds can I acquire? What can I get from your program in terms of NIL? That's becoming the first question. And the reason why it is, you have a lot of these 17 to 18-year-olds, the majority of them are coming from rough areas socioeconomically, where, mom had to work 6, 7, 8 jobs just to make ends meet. And not only is, that young man his own way out, but he's the way out for his community. The whole block is looking up to that man. You the gold ticket. You're our guy. If you can get out, you can get all of us out. And that's what's weighing on that particular young man or young athlete's shoulders is, I'm not only am I representing myself, I'm representing my family, I'm representing this entire community that I'm coming from. And going to this school here, in times past, the question was about the culture. It was about being on national TV. It was about, the fan base. Is that fan base going to be rocking? It was about the education. It was about all these big factors here. But now in NIL climate, the number one question that jumps to the top of the board and supersedes all, how big is your collective? How much money am I going to get? How many funds am I going to acquire? Because think about it. In today's mind of a 17, 18-year-old, especially with the influx of social media, it's how quick can I get it now? How easy can I access it now? It's a microwave thing now. And, if you can come up on $1 million, $2 million, $3 million in NIL collective, how much is the NFL going to matter to a lot of these kids? You have to ask yourself that question. Some are still going to grind for that NFL money, but you have others that feel like, okay, I'm 17, 18, and off NIL, especially if I perform well off NIL, I'm pocketing $2, $3, $4 million. So, hey, I done bought my mom a house. I done took my family out to projects. We done went from the projects to the penthouse. We done went, to the east side, got us a piece of the pie, George Jefferson. Like we done made it out the slums off college NIL money. I haven't played a down in the NFL, haven't gotten injured, haven't got my body broken up, torn up yet, and yet because of NIL collectives, I done made $2 to $4 million right here in college. So do I even really need the NFL? You got kids, because of the social media mindset, that's going to hit their head. That's going to hit their brain. Is why now go to the NFL when I can look at this collective pot of NIL and get all the money I want there? So it's a huge conundrum here, facing Alabama and Coach Saban. You can, put it on those boosters, and those boosters can go out there and make sure you're getting those guys within the confines of NIL and getting those players. And you can still have those guys that come to the program for the sole purpose of the culture, wanting to win championships and getting that education. But in today's climate, you're starting to see more and more guys that number one, and it's changing recruiting, more and more guys, that number one question is starting to become, what is your NIL? What is in your collective pot? And then we can start the conversation from there. But it's just very intriguing, and I'm going to enjoy watching how Coach Saban, his staff, the University of Alabama, the booster department, the collectives here in Alabama, how they go about handling all of this. This will be a fascinating story for time to come here.